Alright guys, so you might have noticed recently the channel has a few videos about the Bartel Roseland amp. That's going to carry on for another week or so because I figured it was best to get fully sort of stuck into the amp for about 2 weeks and produce all the videos about it. That way I really get in my mind what this amp is about. And I want to say, the more I play it, the more I'm falling in love with this amp. It wasn't an instant thing for me with this amp. Really, it was right at the beginning because the quality of the sound is so big and so impressive. Then I sort of like slumped a bit because I thought, God, this is quite complicated. I'm not sure I want that. Now that I've really sussed out more and more of what I want, the amp is actually just amazing. I can't really see myself getting rid of this amp now. But today I wanted to answer a question that I get a lot. I've seen it in the comments and I get messages about it, about every amp that I've got really. How good is this at lower volumes? So that's all this video is today. It's quite a simple one, but I hope you enjoy sort of hearing an amp like this that hasn't got an attenuator, but it's got a really good master volume. How is it going to keep that gain structure without pushing too hard? You know, all those things. I'll talk you through a little bit. We're going to start, so basically I'm going to choose two settings today. There's a setting that's between the Plexi and the Tweed settings. So basically I've set it halfway between, and that really does cover both of those aspects in terms of how the master volume works. And then the second set of demos is in the Blackface setting, which has a completely different sort of feel to it, and the way that the volume works is completely different. So I've chosen my Gold SG for the Tweed Plexi, Tweed and Marshall setting, I'm calling it, and a Strat for the Blackface ones, which you might expect. And with the Blackface one, I've also just used a bit of a pedal right at the end. But I wanted to keep this as short as possible. I'm going to talk you through a few of the clips. Let's get stuck in. Okay, that is properly loud. I play at that sort of volume way too often. I'm actually starting to get quite a lot of earache, especially in the ear that's nearer the amp. Even though I sometimes wear my attenuated earbuds, there's no way if you're an at-home player in a normal situation, living room, bedroom, apartment, whatever, and you're looking for an amp that's a bit quieter, there's no way you're going to play at these volumes. So it's almost irrelevant. But that is the volumes that I've normally done my demos at in the past. This video is an eye-opener for me because you're going to see that actually some of the lower volumes are perfectly great, just as good, just different. Don't push the speaker as much, but also sometimes better for a certain room, depending on your reflections. But yeah, I really enjoy playing at that volume, but I need to tone that down and only do it very occasionally. On the decibel meter app, it would probably tell me that I shouldn't do that for more than about 1 minute, otherwise I'm damaging my ear. So we're going to go straight to a very low volume. Volume 2. Let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, volume 2 is probably still a bit too loud for, let's say, apartment playing, if you've got lots of other apartments around you. If you're in a house, if you're in a front room and it's not necessarily a terraced house, maybe semi-detached or whatever, and the rest of your family's out, you could definitely play at that volume, I think. With that amount of compression, it's not painful on the ears, although it is painful on the ears at the much higher, earlier volume, just from the way the rooms reflect back on you. But at volume 2, it felt pretty much as good to play. It sounded fantastic. I'm not used to such a low volume, but if you're already used to playing at low volume, it's incredible. And to be honest, to get this quality of compression and feel at that volume, for me, are pretty staggeringly good. We're going to go a couple of steps lower eventually. We're going to go to volume 1 now. Let's see what's going on there. And you'll hear a bit of master volume 1, a bit of master volume 2, and back to a bit of master volume 1 for comparison. So it's at master volume 1 where you start to get the really, I would say, apartment friendly volumes, bedroom friendly volumes, and playing all the time when you've got people around in the house. Not very loud. Bear in mind this decibel meter is about 4 feet in front of the amp, whereas if you're watching TPS or Andertons, they have it quite far back behind the amps. So I always think that that's skewed the volume because most people aren't sitting behind their amp. But for the rest of your house and family and etc., maybe those are quite relevant volumes. So bear in mind that outside of your room, it's going to quite quickly dissipate. So maybe that's a test we can do another time where I'll take an amp into one of my non-soundproofed rooms and we'll hold the decibel meter further and further back using a looper. That could be quite interesting. But anyway, at volume 1, you do start to lose a little bit of the beautiful harmonics in that saturation. I think that's got to be to do with the speaker, for example. You know, it's harder for the speaker at those much lower volumes to really give over those sounds. But it's still really impressive. At 81 to 85 decibels, this is pretty much where you're going to be at home. And I would say it's fantastic. Now, would I say that the Bartel Roseland is a little bit over the top if you can only ever play at those volumes? That's a really personal decision. For me personally, yes, I would probably say that. But if I could never go above those volumes, no matter the amp that I'm using, then, and I wanted the best of the best, I would still go for the Roseland, because at those volumes, it's going to be, you know, as good as it is at high volumes compared to some other amps, it's going to be equally better at those low volumes, in my opinion. And some amps just won't sound good at low volumes, or they'll be very clean at low volumes. You know, it depends on the gain structure. Overall, I'm still really impressed with my experience now. For example, the Tone King Sky King, that has an attenuator where you can really pull the volumes down, and it's a really good attenuator, the Iron Man 2, but you lose a lot of dynamics and feel as you bring the volume down. The Roseland, you do not. All you're losing is the feeling of space, size, the way that the speaker is pushing, and you lose a little bit of the harmonics, but you're not losing the brightness. With the Tone King, you lose a lot of the brightness, in my opinion. Okay, now we're going to hear the master volume at below 1. It was somewhere below 1. This is really quiet, and in this case, I've not pulled the sound up. In my editing suite, I've pulled the sound up in most places to equalize everything, so you can hear the tone. In this case, I want you to hear the room, the way it was in the room, which was really quiet. Once you get into the mid-70s, that was late 60s to mid 70s, that's too quiet. Well, that was too quiet for me personally, but actually, listening back, it sounded really good. You still got the same sort of sound, the same sort of saturation. For practice, I would say that is perfect. And actually, when I need to let my ears rest after a day of shooting and I'm practicing for the next couple of days, I think I should probably keep it somewhere around 1 or just below 1, where I don't think it's going to do much damage to you. So yeah, that's pretty impressive. Just to finish off with the SG, I'm going to go to volume 3, which just for completeness. So at volume 3, I thought it was really, really good actually. That's probably where I should use the amp for pedal demos and things to make it somewhat realistic for your use, and also, you know, somewhere towards where I would normally use it, and much better for my ears. As I keep saying, doing this video has been an eye-opener that I've been playing way too loud. Not only too loud for my ears, it's going to cause me damage in the long term, but it's just not as realistic for you guys. In reality, I should do most of my videos at 90 to 95 decibels, so a little bit more than you might play at home, and then for a bit of fun every so often throw in a high volume clip, but be more careful. Yeah, I'm going to try and remember that. Okay, so let's move on to the Blackface setting, and in this case I'm using a Strat. What else could I use? Okay, so if you haven't seen my video about how the Bartel Roseland works, I'll put a link here or in the description. To get the Blackface sound, you whack both tone controls up. That creates a scoop, and it gives you that full sound of a Blackface amp, which tends to have quite a big low end and quite a big, quite a bright high end. The way that you'd work the volume in this is you keep the master volume on 10. You then use the channel volume as a sort of volume control, and it doesn't so much control the gain as it does the volume. But I find above volume 6 just starts to sound less like a Blackface amp, because it doesn't sound... You'd have to rejig the tone controls, the bass just gets a bit too much and everything. I didn't want to complicate it for this. So this was loud enough, and I really enjoy that tone actually. It's not exactly like the Blackface amps that I've played, but I think given the different design of cabinet and the type of speaker and everything, it's probably as close as he could get. Right, so let's drop that volume a bit and see what happens. So I find that the Roseland, in the Blackface setting, has a thickness to it that a real Blackface amp probably doesn't have. But it is what it is. I think it's I really enjoy playing it. I don't think of it as a Blackface. I do think of it as a sort of mid-60s sound, but I really enjoy it in the room. The reverb is astonishingly good, and the tremolo too. And I just enjoy the bigness of it all. And even at that lower volume where... Oh, here's the other thing. The spread in decibels for this setting is much more than the more compressed Plexi Tweed sound we were using before. So you'll see the decibel range, for example, and this was 86 to 102. That shows you how dynamic it is, really. Maybe a little bit more complicated for playing at quiet volumes in that sense, because it does waver a bit more. If you hit it hard, it's going to really spike. But that's a positive of this amp. It's that dynamic. Right, we're dropping the volume again to 2 here. Actually, I thought at volume 2 it sounded really great because it lost a lot of the thickness that the speaker, the cabinet, the size of the amp gives you, and sounded a bit more crystal clear, which I really enjoyed. But then you have to work a lot harder to get any sort of double stop edge of breakup sound, which I normally really enjoy. I think that's where a further investigation about pedals will come in a different video. Can we play at a low volume but use a gain pedal to give us that edge of breakup at the right volume? I'm sure we can. Okay, what I'm going to do next is we're now going to plug the Shanks in, and I'm going to do master volume 2, 4 and 6 again using the same setting on the Shanks. We'll see how loud and what it sounds like. Well, I think we pretty much answered that question actually about the pedals, but obviously we can investigate that with more pedals and have a bit more fun with that. But really, at the lower volume, the pedal did exactly what I wanted. It gave me that edge of breakup, if not more, that Nashville sound with the Shanks, and those lovely harmonics and everything, and it sounded fantastic in the room. And as I said before, this has really opened my eyes up to being able to play at these quieter volumes, not only for the sake of my ears, for the sake of everyone else in my house, and for the sake of being more realistic to you. So yeah, I think in every future video I'll contemplate how quietly can I play to get a great sound. I could jig around the volume levels here to reduce the room volume a lot more. You'd probably hear less of the actual picking, but I wanted to give you the idea of what it sounds like in the room. So yeah, my overall impression is this: if you're looking to buy a large amp but you can't play that loudly, this for me absolutely is probably the best I've ever heard. If I compare it to the likes of the Tone King Sky King, The attenuator on that is very good, but it cuts a lot of the dynamics off. The 2-rock amps are fine at low volume, but given the price compared to these amps, the Bartel amps, if anyone asks me that question, I'm going to give the same answer. And I've been asked a few times in my Instagram DMs, Bartel versus 2-rock. Unless you only want that very crystal clear, more clinical sound, I'm going to use that word in comparison to the Bartel, then go for the Bartel. If you're a massive John Mayer fan, it's probably better to go for 2-rock. If you want more variety in your sound, then the Bartel really is I've really come round to it. It gives you so much, and actually in terms of bang for your buck, this head and cab is cost me £6,100. I think that's similar now to a 2-rock head and cab. You're going to get a lot more for your money with the Bartel. But on the other hand, the 2-rock gives you that. Some of the 2-rocks will give you a clean in a more crystal Fender way than this. When I say Fender, I mean Blackface Fender, because this is more Tweedy Fender. But yeah, that's a conversation to have probably in the final video on this amp, which will be next week or the week after. I hope this has been useful. Let me know down in the comments if you've got any more questions. But my final answer on this, because I get this sort of question about every amp so much, is yes, this amp will do really well at low volumes, depending on your expectations. If you're used to playing a 100-watt amp at 115 decibels all the time, it will take you a while to get used to it. If you're used to playing a small amp at quiet volumes and you're not happy with it, this amp will blow you out of the water. It will blow your mind. It's really great. Anyway, I'm rambling on now. I hope you have a good day. See you next time. Cheers.